Imagine waking up one of the most celebrated minds in history, rich, famous, and universally admired, and realizing that none of it matters. Imagine standing at the pinnacle of human achievement, surrounded by wealth, acclaim, and literary genius, only to be consumed by a question so terrifying that it paralyzes you. What if all of this is meaningless? This was Leo Tolstoy's reality. He had everything society tells us we should want: fame, fortune, influence, legacy. He wrote two of the greatest novels ever written, War and Peace, Anna Karenina. His words shaped generations. His name was synonymous with greatness. And yet, at the height of his success, he stared into the abyss and saw nothing. No purpose, no meaning. Just an infinite void where once there had been ambition. Tolstoy didn't just have a passing doubt or momentary crisis. He was gripped by existential despair so profound that he hid ropes from himself, fearing he might give in to the temptation of suicide. How could someone who had achieved everything feel utterly lost? What made him question the very foundation of life itself? He came to a chilling conclusion. Nothing lasts forever. All achievements vanish. All memories fade. The monuments we build crumble. And in the face of death, even the greatest accomplishments seem absurdly insignificant. If nothing endures beyond our fleeting existence, then what is the point of striving? Why work? Why love? Why create? When all will be forgotten. This wasn't just Tolstoy's dilemma. It was the ultimate human dilemma. He searched desperately for answers in science, in philosophy, in art. But they all failed him. Logic told him life had no ultimate meaning. Reason offered only cold explanations, devoid of purpose. Even the great thinkers of history seemed divided. One claiming life is meaningless, another insisting it is full of purpose. So which one was right? And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Tolstoy's crisis is not unique to him. It is yours. It is mine. We may not admit it out loud, but deep down, don't we all wonder if our lives truly matter? If you stripped away your job title, your bank account, your relationships, what would remain? Is there something deeper, something beyond the daily grind, the endless cycle of ambition and exhaustion? Or are we all just playing roles in a story that ends the moment we stop breathing? The tension builds. The question lingers. And now, the real journey begins. Tolstoy's crisis was not just personal. It was deeply human. It revealed a universal truth. The pursuit of external success often leads to internal emptiness. He had everything the world promised would bring happiness, fame, wealth, recognition. Yet none of it satisfied him. Why? Because he had fallen into what Carl Jung called the trap of the persona, the mask we wear to meet society's expectations. Tolstoy lived for years as a literary icon, a nobleman, a celebrated writer. But beneath that carefully constructed identity was a man who felt lost, disconnected from his own soul. This is the first layer of the hidden problem. We build our lives around illusions. Society tells us that if we work hard enough, achieve enough, and accumulate enough, we will find meaning. But Tolstoy discovered what so many others have before and since, that this formula collapses under the weight of time. No matter how much you accomplish, no matter how high you climb, the question remains: what happens when it all ends? Friedrich Nietzsche described this very dilemma in his concept of nihilism, the belief that life has no inherent meaning or value. Tolstoy, like Nietzsche, realized that once the pillars of materialism and status are stripped away, all that remains is an existential void. But unlike Nietzsche, who famously declared God is dead, Tolstoy did not want to accept a world without meaning. He needed something more than intellectual analysis. He needed a way to live that could withstand the certainty of death. And so, he turned inward. He examined the lives of those who seemed immune to despair, not because they lacked hardship, but because they possessed something deeper than reason or logic. He found them among the peasants, the laborers, the simple folk who lived without grand ambitions yet carried a quiet peace within them. These people were not philosophers, nor scientists, nor aristocrats. They were ordinary men and women who lived by faith, by love, by service. And in their simplicity, Tolstoy saw clarity. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, later wrote about this same phenomenon in Man's Search for Meaning. He argued that the primary drive in human life is not pleasure, as Freud suggested, nor power, as Adler believed, but meaning. People can endure immense suffering, even face death, if they believe their existence serves a purpose. Tolstoy, too, came to this realization. His crisis was not merely about finding answers. It was about discovering a way to live that gave suffering dignity, that made existence bearable, even joyful. But there was another layer to Tolstoy's struggle, one that continues to haunt modern minds. He was caught between two worlds, the rational and the spiritual, the scientific and the sacred. Science told him that life was a cosmic accident, that consciousness was a fleeting phenomenon in an indifferent universe. Philosophy offered contradictions, some claiming meaning existed, others insisting it was an illusion. And religion? It was riddled with institutions that, to Tolstoy, had lost touch with the very truths they claimed to uphold. He stood at the crossroads of doubt and faith, unable to fully embrace either. This tension is not unique to Tolstoy. It is the defining conflict of the modern age. We live in a world where logic reigns supreme, where empirical evidence is the gold standard of truth, and yet deep down, we still crave something beyond data points and statistics. We seek meaning not in spreadsheets or research papers, but in love, in art, in sacrifice, in connection. Tolstoy's journey teaches us that the hidden problem is not simply the fear of meaninglessness. It is the refusal to confront it. Most of us distract ourselves with busyness, with entertainment, with endless consumption. We avoid the silence, the solitude, the questions that keep us awake at night. But Tolstoy did not run. He faced the abyss, and in doing so, he uncovered a truth that few dare to acknowledge. If we do not define our own meaning, we risk living someone else's life. The consequences of avoiding this question are far more profound than most realize. When we fail to define our own meaning, we unconsciously surrender it to forces beyond our control. Cultural conditioning, social expectations, economic pressures, and psychological biases. Tolstoy discovered that the crisis he faced was not isolated. It was a symptom of a much larger disease, the loss of authentic purpose in modern life. Modern neuroscience confirms what Tolstoy intuited. Humans are wired to seek meaning. Our brains are pattern-seeking machines, constantly searching for coherence in an unpredictable world. Without a sense of purpose, the mind becomes vulnerable to anxiety, depression, and existential dread. Studies show that people who lack a clear sense of meaning are more prone to chronic stress, addiction, and emotional instability. In contrast, those who feel their lives have significance experience greater resilience, happiness, and longevity, even in the face of adversity. But here's the catch. Meaning is not something we stumble upon like a forgotten object. It must be cultivated, chosen, and lived intentionally. Tolstoy understood this better than most. He saw that many people go through life on autopilot, chasing goals handed to them by society, wealth, fame, status, only to wake up one day feeling empty, confused, and disillusioned. This is the silent tragedy of our age. Millions live unexamined lives, mistaking distraction for fulfillment and comfort for contentment. Cognitive biases further distort our perception of meaning. The hedonic treadmill, for example, explains why external achievements rarely provide lasting satisfaction. We adapt quickly to new levels of success, always craving more. A promotion brings temporary joy, only to be replaced by the pressure to climb higher. A new car excites us for weeks, then fades into background noise. Tolstoy recognized this cycle early. He had everything the world told him to desire, and yet it left him hollow. Another bias, confirmation bias, keeps us trapped in false narratives about success. We see stories of wealthy entrepreneurs, celebrities, and influencers and assume they've found happiness. But behind the curated images lies a reality Tolstoy knew well. Money cannot buy peace of mind. Many of the richest and most famous individuals suffer from loneliness, addiction, and existential despair. Yet, we continue to chase the same mirage, believing that if we just reach the next milestone, we'll finally feel fulfilled. Tolstoy's greatest insight was this: meaning is not found in the destination, but in the direction we choose to take. He realized that the true danger was not in questioning life's purpose. It was in never asking the question at all. To live without meaning is to drift aimlessly through existence, reactive rather than proactive, shaped by circumstance rather than choice. And perhaps the most insidious consequence of this unconscious living is that it breeds complacency. When we don't actively shape our values, we absorb them from the world around us. Social media, advertising, peer pressure, cultural norms. We end up living lives that are not truly ours. Tolstoy broke free from this trap by rejecting the expectations placed upon him. He walked away from luxury, from prestige, from the comforts of aristocracy, because he understood that unless he defined his own path, he would remain enslaved to someone else's vision. This is the unseen war raging within every human being, the battle between conformity and authenticity, between borrowed meaning and self-created purpose. Tolstoy chose the harder road, not because it was easy, but because it was real. And in doing so, he uncovered a truth that echoes through time. The greatest danger is not failing to find meaning. It is failing to ask the question in the first place. To break free from the trap of borrowed meaning, Tolstoy realized, one must rebel, not against governments or institutions, but against the unconscious patterns that dictate our lives. He didn't merely reject wealth and status. He rejected the entire framework that told him these things should define his worth. His rebellion was internal before it became external. He dismantled the beliefs that kept him trapped and rebuilt himself from the inside out. This radical shift required Tolstoy to embrace paradoxes that most people instinctively resist. He learned that true freedom comes not from indulgence, but from renunciation. He abandoned his luxurious estate, dressed like a peasant, and took up manual labor, not as a performance, but as a daily practice of humility. He refused to be owned by possessions, choosing instead to be guided by principles. More importantly, he realized that meaning is not discovered. It is created. Tolstoy stopped waiting for some divine revelation or philosophical breakthrough. Instead, he began to live as if meaning already existed, and in doing so, he found it. He helped others, practiced compassion, and devoted himself to daily acts of kindness. He didn't wait to feel inspired. He acted, and inspiration followed. This approach aligns with Viktor Frankl's philosophy. Meaning is not a static entity waiting to be found. It is a dynamic force that emerges through action. Tolstoy embodied this principle. He stopped searching for abstract truths and started living the answer. He wrote, he taught, he served. Not because he had all the answers, but because he understood that meaning reveals itself through engagement, not detachment. His rebellion also extended to authority. Tolstoy challenged the Russian Orthodox Church, the aristocracy, and the state, not out of hatred, but out of conviction. He saw how institutions often claim to hold truth while betraying its essence. He criticized the church for turning Christianity into rituals devoid of love, and the government for using power to oppress rather than serve. His defiance was not reckless. It was principled. He lived according to his conscience, even when it meant exile, persecution, or condemnation. In today's world, Tolstoy's rebellion offers a powerful lesson. You do not need permission to live with purpose. You do not need validation from society, approval from institutions, or guarantees from logic. What matters is your willingness to choose meaning over convenience, authenticity over conformity, and love over fear. Tolstoy's transformation was not immediate, nor was it perfect. He struggled, doubted, and faced criticism from those closest to him. But he persisted, and in doing so, he proved that it is never too late to reclaim your life. Whether you are young or old, rich or poor, successful or struggling, you have the power to redefine your existence. All it takes is the courage to ask the question and the determination to live the answer. At the heart of Tolstoy's journey lies a revelation so profound that it redefines everything we think we know about life. The meaning of existence is not found in what we achieve, but in how we choose to live each moment. It is not in the applause of the crowd, the size of our bank account, or the legacy we leave behind, but in the love we give, the connections we nurture, and the integrity with which we walk our path. Tolstoy came to understand that meaning is not a distant goal to be reached, nor a cosmic mystery to be solved. It is a decision, a daily act of defiance against the void. He realized that the search for meaning is not passive. It is active, intentional, and deeply personal. It is not something granted by the universe. It is something we create through our choices, our actions, and our willingness to care for others. This insight shattered the illusion that happiness depends on external conditions. Tolstoy had lived in both abundance and simplicity, and he found that peace did not reside in wealth or poverty, but in purpose. He saw that the peasants he admired did not possess some secret knowledge. They simply lived with a clarity that he had long forgotten. Their meaning was not in grand declarations or philosophical treatises, but in the small, daily acts of love, labor, and devotion. And so, the final truth Tolstoy uncovered is this: meaning is not something you find, it is something you live. Every interaction, every gesture of kindness, every moment of presence is an opportunity to shape your existence into something meaningful. The answer to the question, what is the meaning of life, is not written in books or whispered by prophets. It is spoken through the way we choose to live. As Tolstoy aged, he continued to refine this understanding. He no longer sought validation from the world, nor certainty from logic. He had found something more enduring, a way of being that transcended success and failure, joy and sorrow, life and death. He died not as a man who had conquered the universe, but as one who had reconciled with himself. And now the question remains, for you, for me, for everyone who dares to ask, how will you live your answer?